The New American Cinema is funded in part by the following agencies and departments of the University of Wisconsin: the Anonymous Funds Committee, the Center for 20th Century Studies, the Wisconsin Union, the School of Fine Arts, the School of Education, the Department of Art History, the Art Department, the Wisconsin Center for Theater Research, the Wisconsin Institute for Intermediate Studies. Film, video, the computer, audio circuitry. Now familiar as the hardware of mass communications, they are also the tools of a personal art form unique to the 20th century. Neither movie nor TV, the works of this new medium use light, sound, motion, and time to give us fresh views of the world outside and inside our heads. In this series, we share the private visions of 8 masters of this emerging art, the New American Cinema.
This program and one other program in the series will be devoted to the work and personality of Will Hindle. Will Hindle is a representative, perhaps one of the chief representatives of the West Coast School of the New American Cinema. He's now professor of film, is that right, at South Florida University? Is that correct? Okay. Let me just begin by simply asking you how you began making films. Why film instead of one of the other arts?
I really don't know. I didn't study it, and I imagine it's just a cumulative effect of some sort. Everything else that I did was put together, and soon after graduating, I was an English major. I found that almost everything I did added up to film. It wasn't a forsaking of anything. It was a totalization of a sort.
You felt perhaps that film was the medium that could encompass the multiple aspects of what it was you wanted to get at. Is that?
And I didn't know what I wanted to get at either. It was just a matter of having certain statements to be said, and writing couldn't do it, painting couldn't do it, music couldn't do it, but film seemed to be just right. There was no movement as we know it. Certainly there were motion pictures, but not too many independent filmmakers. About in 1957, 58, it was just a reach into the unknown at the time.
And it was a long discipline on your part to keep at it, I suspect, without the distribution system being set up in those days, before any recognition was really being given to the kind of films that you make.
I think at least the first two films I made, I just put in a dresser drawer, and they stayed there for about 4 years until some people came along and said, have you ever thought of putting it into some sort of co-op or distribution? And I didn't know such things existed.
How were you making a living in those days?
I rolled drunks and things. I worked for Pacific Gas and Electric, working with IBM cards. I did some gardening. I did some freelance writing for Dole, Pineapple, things of this sort. As I tell my students now, certainly don't find it demeaning whatsoever to work in other fields in order to pay for your film work. But there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, the recognition was slow in coming, but it's gathering momentum now. I understand that Billabong, a segment of which we saw at the opening of the show, and another film which we'll see later, Watersmith, has been invited recently to represent the United States at Cannes. Is that those are the only two films representing the New American cinema? Is that true?
I really don't know about that. It might be one of 10, then 2 of 10, 2 of 60. I don't know, but this year I think Cannes is having some sort of honor or a special night or special week devoted to the New American cinema.
Getting back now to your method of working, which seems to me to grow directly out of the way you got into film in the first place, that is an exploration. You don't begin with a script or perhaps even a design, do you? Don't you just feel your way into the subject material and then let the film kind of find its own laws of growth?
As I tell some of the new filmmakers that I work with, if they can find something beyond themselves, beyond a script, beyond a personal little idea, music sometimes will help. If a piece of music is moving enough, play it, listen to it, use that as your script. Use something beyond, I don't know, the temporalness of a fleeting idea, And if you flag sometimes, and if there's no money, and if the equipment doesn't work, or some of the people don't show up you're using, play the piece of music, but keep it going, and never look down, never doubt. Get that first film finished. The first two films I made, looking back on it, I just don't see how or why I did them. They were much too difficult. I didn't have the equipment. I hadn't gone to school. There were any number of reasons why I could not have made them had I known, but I didn't know that I could not make them, so I went ahead and made them.
Lacking formal instruction, then how did you approach it? Did you seek out advice from filmmakers that you knew, or did you just begin?
Gosh, I guess we've all taken a still picture at one time, so I knew what f-stops were and a light meter. And I guess I know how I did it. I sold a car I had and went out and bought a camera and started filming about 2 days later. I rarely read instructions. That's a terrible weakness with me. But I didn't make too many mistakes, except one time I found there was a great deal of fogging down the side of the film. And I asked a man who owned a film company, and he said that it was static electricity. I had worn rubber-soled shoes and had a rubber-soled tip on the tripod, and nothing was grounded. So I guess for the next 10 years, the man was a fine tutor. He's Marvin Becker of San Francisco, who also helped out somebody whom I very admirous of, Bruce Bailey. Both of us went to him with our needs.
Now, the first two films that you made were both based on musical scores. Isn't that true? And one of them, called Pastoral d'été, is based on a score by Honegger. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps we could see a bit of that now.
Fine.
Now that early film made in 1958, was it?
Yes.
59. Many parts of approaches that you use, many kinds of shots, have been pirated by the commercial industry since then. Isn't that true?
Sure, and I guess they always will. I tell my students, I tell people that I talked before that this is something that you have to accept. You can copyright your film, but quite often, well, I hadn't seen prior to that time in and out of focus, going from focus from here to focus to there. But I would get up every morning about 4:30. It took about 3 months to make this film. And I would get up and I would see what I wanted to focus on from here to 3 miles away. And in doing it, I liked going through the grass in and out of focus. I could actually travel through the grass by changing the focus. So I left it in the film. And since then, of course, I think television is just sort of replete with, Robert Wagner going in and out of focus on To Catch a Thief, to intensify his mystery. And there was another scene right at the very end there that looks directly into the sun. I had not seen that before. I didn't know, for all I knew, you couldn't do that. It would ruin the lens and the camera and the film. But I liked what I saw in the viewfinder, that at least those two.
Now, once your films began to have a life of their own and to get out in the world, as it were you able then to begin making film at other people's expense, as it were?
I don't know if it happened that late. I waited about 9 years because I really don't know how to exploit my works or to make them known or to do anything about them. I'm very fortunate. People invite me. I really don't know how to contact somebody and say that, well, here I am, ask me. So about 9 years after the first one, I think I was asked to talk for the first time. But between then, I was very fortunate. Westinghouse Broadcasting Company hired me to do their West Coast filming, but they hired me out of New York and paid me out of New York to do filming in and around San Francisco. And I could film anything I wanted, any way I wanted, and it would go on there. I think they had eight stations, I'm not sure.
How was that footage used?
On a show called PM East, PM West, with Mike Wallace as a co-host in New York. And they let me, well, I guess I made about 150 films.
You also made a film with Sterling Hayden at one point, didn't you?
Well, Sterling Hayden every now and then would take his children and run from Hollywood and from the problems that beset him. And he had a ship, beautiful, beautiful ship called the Wanderer, or Wanderer. And one time the ship went to the South Seas. We went to Pitcairn. Well, I didn't know it at the time. I was going to Pitcairn, Mangareva, Raivabai, Tahiti, and guess back to Hawaii, and then back to the United States. And somebody said on a phone call, would you like to take an assignment outside of San Francisco? And I said yes. I thought they meant Berkeley or San Jose or maybe Los Angeles. And I said yes, if it's something I can get into. And 2 weeks later they phoned back and they said, can you be ready in about 2 days? And I said, well, I mean, what can you use if it's just outside of town? They said, this is Tahiti. So I think I packed a couple of T-shirts and some shorts and vomited for 18 hours and filmed for 4 months.
And what happened to that footage?
The footage was backed by a man who was a little strange. He put it in a vault, and there it remains in San Francisco today. People have tried to buy it. Sterling Hayden tried to get it from him and get it edited, something done with it. But my little feeling switch turned off on it years ago.
Yeah.
It is quite beautiful, though.
Well, now that you're teaching at, is it Florida State?
No, University of
South
South
Florida,
Florida, which is
okay.
in Central Florida.
Forgive me. Do you find teaching to be a drain on your creative energy in terms of your own work?
Teaching, not so much, but setting up a department, yes. I had a Guggenheim grant at the time when all this was transpiring, and I chose to leave San Francisco after about 15 years of filmmaking and living there, because I felt that our folk culture was coming from the South, or from at least from the central part of the United States. The East and the West Coast had their chance, and I wasn't putting them down. I was just saying nobody's going to the center. Everybody's going to the coasts. So I went to the center and had bought about 15 acres in the South and was going to find somebody I could take the banjo away from and give a Bolex to, and let's see if we can't get that kind of music, that same kind of feeling onto film. And the University of South Florida phoned one day and they said, "We understand you're working in the South now." And they understood right.
Well, I'd like to show a segment now, close this segment of the program with a segment of a film called Saint Flournoy, which to me symbolizes the kind of quest for integrity and wholeness of vision that your work represents.
The New American Cinema is funded in part by the following agencies and departments of the University of Wisconsin: the Anonymous Funds Committee, the Center for 20th Century Studies, the Wisconsin Union, the School of Fine Arts, the School of Education, the Department of Art History, the Art Department, the Wisconsin Center for Theater Research, the Wisconsin Institute for Intermediate Studies. The New American Cinema is funded in part by the following agencies and departments of the University of Wisconsin: the Anonymous Funds Committee, the Center for 20th Century Studies, the Wisconsin Union, the School of Fine Arts, the School of Education, the Department of Art History, the Art Department, the Wisconsin Center for Theater Research, the Wisconsin Institute for Intermediate Studies. Film, video, the computer, audio circuitry. Now familiar as the hardware of mass communications, they are also the tools of a personal art form unique to the 20th century. Neither movie nor TV, the works of this new medium use light, sound, motion, and time to give us fresh views of the world outside and inside our heads. In this series, we share the private visions of 8 masters of this emerging art, the New American Cinema.
Well, when I first was alive, younger than I am now, and it was a good time when you were forming inside these opinions, these things, these ideas in your mind. When you, I was living with a married woman during this time, and it was my mother. And it was very, it was a sort of as if you were living at home, and it was very unusual, and yet you were not living at home, and there were, we lived for quite a while away from the home, and with 4 aunts. I lived with these 4 aunts when my mother died. She died when I was born, and I missed my father very much. He died, 3 years before I was born, and I was so alone, and the 4 aunts were living with an uncle of somebody's, and we lived there, my mother and I, we lived there for quite a number of years until my father came back, and the uncle was there at the time. I remember he was in the service. I was very young and don't know which service he was in, but he was serving, I remember, and the aunts were beholden unto him for staying there, and he was providing very, very good and in the service, and he was with my father most of the time, I think, and the aunts were very much close to me, and we were all together in when we left. I really have never understood why we went away. It was a great hurry, and these people were searching for our family, and we had a reputation and lots of food. There was a large cat food for the animals. It was good. It was very good to see animals out and to play. A dog in the city, I don't know, when I see a dog in the city, it's so painful to me too. The yards are in the city. There are very few in the large cities, and in the park they must go. And a dog needs to run and to play. I stand sometimes and I watch the dog and the leash, the chains, and it is. There are times when I'm traveling, when I think of this and I look out, and all of this comes back about my people. And there were times when I was very young and I was living with my father, and we would go into the subway and go out. A long drive, and sit, and we would think so much about dogs and my people, and all of us would be there somehow, and it was the thinking time, and we would think, and when we got back, it was somehow different. So I don't know whether you appreciate it. So different than when we left. It's a good feeling to be this way with your people.
We're continuing our conversation with Will Hindle, professor of film at the University of South Florida. Let's, taking our cue from that segment of the Chinese fire drill, which won the first prize at the Ann Arbor Festival. Let's talk about your method of working somewhat. Isn't it true that this film grew out of a series of audio tapes?
Well, there was a time when I think I've explained that I really just don't know how to make money. It either comes or it doesn't. And somebody encouraged me to enter festivals, And I entered the Ann Arbor Festival with that film in 1968, 69, and it won first prize, and the money helped, and a little bit of the name, somebody finally found out that you existed, kind of helped. Mm-hmm. But it didn't make me want to film any more or less. But this sort of approach to film is what I guess that's the quintessence of what I'm trying to get to my students with. It was done in a very short time. Somebody gave me a warehouse behind a large hotel or motel or something in San Francisco, and I took a bunch of stuff down, just like a chemistry set. You do, and you began to mix things. I mixed the set, I painted it. I did the voice 2 years earlier when I couldn't afford money to make films. I would go home each night and just make tapes, and I said, well, Hinkle, nobody's going to hear these tapes. You just go ahead and say anything you want. So on that tape, I said, you take a Middle European voice box, and you can't go any more than about a sentence and a half, and then you have to change the subject. You have to take that word and move it over and start out again. It was just some sort of exercise. It didn't cost as much to make tapes as it would to make film. But with the advent of somebody loaning me a warehouse for 2 glorious weeks in which that was filmed, and the tape, they seemed to fit together.
And did the structure of the film grow out then of that audio structure?
No, the tape was applied afterward. It was,
well, now, in making this film, did you have a kind of a design concept from the beginning? Or did you trigger off the set and begin to feel your way into it from that direction?
Maybe I'm wrong, but I encourage my students not to spend their money on work prints. That's sort of a gross sin. They could possibly save it for their final print money. And if they don't want to write scripts, that's fine, because scripts somehow hold you to a certain line of thinking. I prefer that they, or I, go out and take advantage of what just happens to be. Do it well. Don't be technically sloppy. Learn how to run everything right. The f-stops, the light meter, the frames per second. But do it as if you were learning how to shift gears in a car. If you learn it well, you won't think about the clutch. 1, 2, 3, 4, reverse, the whole jazz. You won't think about it. It'll just come natural. Then this will leave you to drive better, freely. So I encourage them to knuckle down and get this business of the technicalities under their belt so that they can go out and film freely without thinking of fades or what happens here, what happens there. Get a bunch of free, you footage. Just get it out of you somehow, and then it all comes together at the editing table, really. It's like getting a dictionary. And then when you sit down at the editing table, then you begin to pick out different words and different verbs and different tenses, this sort of thing. To me, editing is more or less where it comes together.
So the editing process is a way of discovering what is inherent in the material that you've gathered. But you must have had a mood in mind when you were working in the set, to put it together. And
gosh, I don't know. Perhaps I'm foolish, but I can rarely prescribe anything without it suffering somewhat. As I tell my students, this particular film was shot off the top of my life. Not that day, not that year, not that incident or that film. It's what was me at any given moment. And that me has to be kept raw. I mustn't say, well, now, if somebody sees that scene, they're going to think such and such. No, I think it's I think it's very necessary to be you, otherwise we get further and further from art. So I show this. I don't like to show my works, but every now and then I'll show this to my students and say that this was shot in 2 weeks in a borrowed studio. The sound was done in 45 minutes 2 years earlier. Just be you. Please be you. Let's stop covering up you. Don't make films to please me. Let's see if we can't get to you. And it's very difficult because all your life films have been structured and technical. And it's very difficult to get that technical part easy to do so that you can live with a light meter and you don't have to go, damn light meter, you know, each time. It's part of you. And get that part done and then think freely.
Mm-hmm. Well, this self-disclosure element is not a kind of an advertisement of yourself, if I understand you right. It's the base of kind of energy and trueness out of which the work grows without you're forcing it in any particular direction. Is that, do I get your meaning? Or am I further obfuscating the point?
Some sort of advertisement for myself. I could name any number of other people I'd rather advertise than myself.
Right. What I'm trying to get clear, though, is the fact that when you say it has to come out of yourself, it has to be you. It's not that you're putting yourself up there as...
No, actually, in this film, there's a child, not too many scenes further on, who takes a bath in a little tub about so big. Mm-hmm. And splashes a little bit at first, and then splashes quite a bit, and then just puts his head back and just splashes a whole tub full of water over him. That kid was to have been what I was in the film. I played the part of the protagonist, or whatever you want to call it, because he could only come for 3 hours on one day. And at that moment, instead of saying, but my script won't do that, I just went downtown on Market Street in San Francisco and bought a 998 or whatever it was Korean wig and ironed the kinks out of it and slapped it on and braided the sides and found a few things. I had practically everything I owned in this warehouse all around. It was sort of like a chemistry set. I would never follow how to make sympathetic ink turn green or to hold lemon writing up to heat. I would usually destroy part of the kitchen with my chemistry sets. So I picked and chose freely from these things around me. I found the IBM cards 10 years earlier beside the road in Marin County, California. I saw a bunch of boxes. Someday those will come in handy. So those were kept. Everything I had kept for about 10 years went down. And I was just brought in, and when the kid was not there for very long, he was from South Africa, a very beautiful and strange family. I said, well, I'll take that part, and you take the bath. So there was no structure to it. There was no self meant. It was an exercise in flat outness, in action art.
Well, this is one of the most personal films. I'm expressing my own opinion now of your work, and the film that we're going to close the program on, and in case I forget later on, thank you very much for spending this time with us.
Thank you for the coffee.
You're welcome. But the film we're going to see, a segment of Watersmith, the subject matter in itself would seem to be almost inexplicable in terms of interest value, the Olympic-sized swimming pool in a college in California, and what goes on in there. And yet what you've managed to create out of that is, for me, an almost metaphysical statement. I don't know if that throws you a curve or what, but Watersmith for me is one of the heaviest films in the New American cinema repertoire.
It was not studied. I don't think anything I do has been studied to be metaphysical or me or anything. It's just what happens.
Well, I want to, just again express my gratitude for you coming and spending this time with us, and I think it's quite appropriate that we close this 2-program series on Will Hindle with the film Watersmith. In the concluding segment of Will Hindle's Watersmith, which you've just seen, the argument of the bubble sequence was shot without the use of a lens, using water as the light transmitting element. An interesting footnote. In the duration of the series, we'll be exploring the work of other filmmakers. We're barely scratching the surface so far, and among others, we'll be talking with and about Bruce Bailey, friend of Will Hindle's and another leading exponent of the West Coast segment of the New American Cinema. Scott Bartlett, pioneer in video graphics. John Whitney, a pioneer in the use of computers for generating images. Shirley Clark, a woman who came from dance to film. Gene Youngblood and P. Adams Sitney, two leading critics of the movement with complementary, if polar, views of the aesthetics. And Jordan Belson. We hope you have enjoyed what you've seen so far and will join us for the rest of the New American Cinema.
The New American Cinema is funded in part by the following agencies and departments of the University of Wisconsin: the Anonymous Funds Committee, the Center for 20th Century Studies, the Wisconsin Union, the School of Fine Arts, the School of Education, the Department of Art History, the Art Department, the Wisconsin Center for Theater Research, the Wisconsin Institute for Intermediate Studies.